What's going on, everyone? It's Car Master, and I'm back with another video. Welcome to episode number 6 of my controversial album cover series. Which, again, guys, thank you guys so much for viewing all the videos, for sharing the videos, for giving me suggestions for brand new videos. So, like I said before, this series is gonna be an ongoing series, which, like I mentioned before, I'm gonna try my best to keep it a weekly series. That way I can bring you a video probably every Saturday or Friday, depending on the day. And fun enough, I just wore this because I just wanted to my Brujeria Matando Güero shirt, which I actually got when I saw Brujeria last month, which awesome band. If you haven't seen Brujeria live, I really suggest you ought to go see them. They're fucking amazing. Even if you don't understand Spanish, you will fucking enjoy the living crap out of this band. But enough of Brujeria. Let's get into today's topic of discussion. So, being on episode 6, and funny enough, I didn't plan this. Funny that this is Easter week. I thought it would be kind of fitting to talk about an album that, instead of loving God, it's kind of hating God. And of course, I am talking about the ninth studio album from one of the biggest thrash metal bands of all time, one of the big four of thrash metal. Of course, I'm talking about Slayer, with their ninth studio album, God Hates Us All, released on September 11, 2001 by American Recordings. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone who's watching this video knows who Slayer is. If you don't know who Slayer is, what the hell are you doing? Go listen to some fucking Slayer, like right now. Like, go fucking right now. But enough joking. I mean, Slayer, one of the biggest American bands of all time, one of the biggest bands in thrash metal, one of the pioneer bands that influenced not only death metal but black metal, Norwegian black metal. Pretty much, Slayer was the band that kind of helped influence the majority of the extreme metal scene from the past and still ongoing. I mean, they're one of the biggest bands of all time, from their imagery of being anti-religious, satanic, outgoing. So it was fitting that Slayer was going to be eventually be part of this series. And from all the Slayer album artworks that I could have talked about, I could have talked about Rain in Blood, which is probably their biggest album to date. I could have talked about Christ Delusion, which might be another video I might do in the future. I could have talked from Hello Waits. But I decided to choose God Hates Us All because God Hates Us All is an album cover just by the release date. Of course, September 11th, 2001, that was the 9, of course, when the Twin Towers fell down. So from the start, this album already starts in controversy because of the release date. So knowing Slayer, they're already familiar with controversy, but this was a bit too much, something that it couldn't no one could have predicted this was gonna happen. So right from the start, from the date, you know it's gonna be something controversial. And then we get to the album cover, which, funny enough, I actually have the CD because it's got it to song. And from the CD, from the album cover, which I'm gonna try to get it out of the CD, which by this time you're probably gonna see the album cover this entire time. And I always like this album cover because it's an album cover that, for some people, like I mentioned before, if you're a person who's into his higher power and very religious person, they might find this album cover blasphemous at times, and might be something so odd that they might even um throw this away. So pretty much the album cover, it's a Bible covered in blood with the Slayer logo kind of burnt on the Bible, and you have a whole bunch of nails that dripping in blood, and they kind of represent I think it was a crucifix or a pentagram. I don't remember correctly what was that the nails were there. But from the album cover's perspective, it is shocking because no one wants to see a Bible dripping in blood. It's kind of like one of the big no-nos when it comes to like Christianity and religion itself. It is a Quran or something like that. You don't want your holy book to be up in flames, covered in blood, raining blood. Anybody? Or just being graffiti and victimized and blasphemous and all the whole bunch of that. But like I mentioned before, the fact that this album came out on the 9/11 attacks already made it controversial. Adding to the fact that the album cover covered a Bible burned with the Slayer logo dripping in blood with nails attached to it. Not only that, but if you actually go into the album, and actually at first I thought this was somebody that actually drew, like, highlighted the album by itself. So actually no, it's actually passages from the album covered in black ink, which I actually thought somebody actually did that by itself, but no, it was passages that the band decided to kind of write up from the Bible. So it's kind of fitting, especially when you have a song like Disciple, which is the main song out of this entire album, with the chorus, God hates us all, God hates us all. It has become probably one of their biggest songs of all time, and I wish I could have seen Slayer live and see that song playing live. Would have been amazing. But like I mentioned before, this album cover gets a lot of iffiness because, like I mentioned before, because of that choreography and history, all that, and to the point that the band couldn't actually release this album cover when it was being, like, the first printing of the album covers. I mean, they were already printed out, they were already just sell in the store, so they already had to sell it. But like, I guess the second wave of albums that they had to sell, they had to come with the alternate album cover, which I'll put somewhere around there. And I gotta mention, the alternate album cover is kind of okay, but I prefer the original album cover because, like I mentioned before, who would have thought that this album would have come out on the same date that the 9/11 attacks would have happened? I mean, no one knew it was gonna happen, so it's kind of one of those things that still boggles my mind. And then again, Slayer's a band that's really familiar with controversy. I mean, people fucking carving themselves in Slayer on their arms. Some killers committing murders inspired by Slayer songs, which is absolutely absurd. Hell, Slayer have written songs about murders like Ed Gein and a whole bunch of others that I'm pretty much forgetting. So Slayer is one of those bands that I mentioned before has paved the way for extreme metal bands like a Mayhem, like Death, pretty much every single Norwegian black metal band, death metal band, grindcore band, you name it. Once you listen to Slayer, you want something heavier and heavier and fast and blasphemous and crazy. So that's why bands like Brujeria, bands like Murdoch, bands like, Burzum and all that, they have a bit of Slayer, because Slayer at the time in the 80s, you gotta remember, this was in the 80s when Slayer was at its biggest, at the height of the PMRC, at the height of evangelists trying to convince people that metal is the devil's music, which there's some truth to it in some perspective, but regardless of that, Slayer was one of those bands that they actually thought they were actually Satanists because of the imagery, the lyrics, the performance, everything like around that. But no, they were just pretty much, Slayer just likes to fuck around with people and provoke people. That's why Kerry King, to the point, Tom Araya, he's a Catholic. And he's fine with it. He's a Catholic. Like, he's not bothered by that. So again, it depends on everyone's perspective, how you were raised and all that and everything like that. But God Hates Us All, the album cover, to me, it's a controversial album cover because, like I mentioned before, it was released on the 9/11 attacks, and the fact that it's burned the Slayer logo, dripping in blood, and nailed, like, couple of, like, maybe like 6 or 7 nails, kind of creating a pentagram. The shock value is already there, and adding that to the lore and all that, it just makes it amazing that and this album, a lot of people have forgotten about it, which it should be celebrated. Then again, this album came out right after the Diablos and Music album, which was total shit. So I understand why some people were iffy kind of to go back into Slayer, but once they listen to this album, Slayer was kind of back, even though they kind of, in this album, they kind of had a brief of new metal. Not really. They kind of went back to the roots, funny enough, and they actually released a very solid album, and the album cover helped that album to sell more records. And then the fact that they put an alternative album cover to replace the original album cover made it even more wanted people to buy it and see why they had to censor the original album cover, which is a good marketing technique, depending on the retailers like Walmart and Target. Some people were kind of iffy about that, but regardless, God Hates Us All, the album cover, to me, is one of the most controversial album covers of all time. And That does it for the video, guys. If you guys really enjoy this new video, like I mentioned before, I'm gonna bring you guys more controversial album covers in the future. Give me more suggestions, give me more ideas. Like I mentioned before, there's so many album covers that have yet to tackle that I'm gonna tackle eventually along the future. So stay tuned for that. If there's an album cover you think it's controversial, provocative, or spawn any kind of controversy, let me know down in the comments, and I will surely make a video about it in the future. Don't forget to follow me on my Instagram. Don't forget to follow me on my Twitter. That way you can kind of see how my day-to-day is, a little bit behind the scenes of what's going on in my personal life and all that. But like I mentioned before, hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Stay safe, everyone, and until next time, stay metal.